The information provided on this podcast is intended for general informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. While we discuss topics related to vegan health, diet, and fitness, always consult with a qualified healthcare provider or registered dietitian before making any changes to your diet, fitness routine, or lifestyle, especially if you have existing health conditions.
Welcome to Good Vegan Meal, the podcast for lifelong vegans, people wanting to become vegan, or those interested in vegan living. We're here to make your lives better by giving you the information you need to succeed in your compassionate vegan lifestyle.
Today, we're tackling a big one, sparks a lot of conversation. Do vegan diets actually lead to a longer life? We've got a stack of research, articles, expert insights here, and our mission is really to pull out the key nuggets for you, help you cut through the noise.
Yeah, it's a question, a lot of people are asking. And as we'll see, the answer isn't really a simple yes or no. It's more nuanced. We're going to walk you through the different studies, the opinions, try to give you that really comprehensive view.
Okay, so let's jump in. Let's start with what seems like a pretty strong case for plant-based eating, looking at those initial claims.
Right. I mean, there's this big review, nearly 50 studies between 2000 and 2023, and it found they called it a robust statistical association between vegetarian and vegan diets and better health overall.
Better health like
Lower risk of heart disease, certain cancers, and even a lower risk of dying from all causes.
Okay, that sounds incredibly promising right off the bat. And these aren't just vague benefits, are they? We're talking reduced risks for things like high blood pressure, blood sugar.
Exactly. Metabolic diseases, and specifically links to lower risk for gastrointestinal cancer and prostate cancer, too.
And it seems like other research backs this up. Even just reducing animal foods helps.
You got it. Yeah, other studies consistently show that just cutting back on animal products, boosting the plant-based foods, that alone can significantly lower your risk for heart disease and cancer. So, it suggests you don't necessarily have to go all the way.
Wow. In fact, I saw one takeaway calling a vegetarian diet one of the effective preventive strategies for the two most impactful chronic diseases. That's quite a statement.
It really is. And some of the really big reviews, they back this up with numbers on actual mortality.
Yeah.
One looked at vegans and vegetarians across the UK, Germany, US, Japan. So you have maybe a 9% lower risk of death from all causes compared to omnivores.
9%, okay.
Yeah, and then there's this other study, maybe even more striking, Seventh-day Adventists in North America. It suggested vegans had a 15% lower risk of dying prematurely from all causes, and that's compared to omnivores and even vegetarians.
15%. Okay, that really does sound like a definitive win for veganism then. So what's the catch? If the benefits seem so clear here, why isn't the science just a straightforward, yes, everyone go vegan, live longer?
Well, this is where it gets trickier. The picture becomes much more complex. A big part of the challenge is just the nature of these studies. They're often epidemiological.
Meaning they look at large groups of people and patterns.
Exactly. They show us associations like this group eats this way and they tend to have this outcome, but they can't definitively prove cause and effect. It's like, ice cream sales and drowning incidents both go up in summer. Doesn't mean ice cream causes drowning, right?
Right, the heat causes both. Okay.
Yeah. And another thing is how they collect the data. Many rely on these food frequency questionnaires. And sometimes the categories for, say, lowest meat consumption might still include people eating red meat maybe once a month. They aren't all strictly vegan.
Ah, that's a really important point. So some of the benefits we think are from being 100% vegan might actually be coming from people who just eat less meat.
It's certainly possible, yeah. We might be seeing the positive effect of reducing meat, not necessarily eliminating it entirely in those specific results.
Is there research that looks at that specifically, the reduction versus elimination?
Yes, the Harvard study is a good example. It tracked people over 18 months and found, yes, a lower mortality risk for those who ate less animal protein, not necessarily zero. And here's the really interesting part. When they isolated the data just for healthy meat eaters, people without chronic conditions already, they found no statistically significant higher risk of dying early for them. So if you are already healthy and eating meat, that study didn't show a clear danger from the meat itself in that specific context.
Okay, so the big population studies have limitations. What about studies that try to compare different diets head to head, like vegans versus vegetarians versus pescatarians? Do they give us clearer answers?
They definitely give us more pieces of the puzzle, and yeah, the findings are sometimes quite surprising. Some studies, like ones by Key and Appleby, they actually found that a strict vegan diet was not linked to better all-cause mortality compared to others.
Really? Who did better in those?
Well, vegetarians, pescatarians, that's people who eat fish but not other meat, and even folks who ate meat only occasionally seem to fare better in terms of longevity in those particular analyses.
Wow, okay. What about other comparison studies?
There's the Orlick study. It's often called AHS2, the Adventist Health Study 2. Their pooled analysis did show improved risk for all the meat-free diets overall. But the score for the vegans, while it showed improvement, it wasn't actually statistically significant on its own, which, suggests maybe a lot of variation within that vegan group.
Okay, let's clear cut again.
But here's where that Orlick study gets really fascinating. They broke down the results by gender. And it was, well, quite different.
Different how?
For men, vegan diets showed a, quote, very positive effect, about a 28% lower risk of death from all causes, roughly. And for cardiovascular risk, huge improvement for vegan men, like 42% lower risk overall, and even better, 55% lower risk for ischemic heart disease.
Okay, so a big benefit for men's hearts specifically.
Seems like it in that study. But for women, a completely different story.
No benefit.
Pretty much. This study showed, quote, little beneficial effect at all for vegan diets for women regarding all-cause mortality. Almost no difference compared to omnivores. And for heart disease, any benefit seemed limited mostly to the women on a pescatarian diet. They saw a really strong reduction in ischemic heart disease risk, about 49%.
So putting this together for you listening, it looks like men, maybe particularly for heart health, might get a bigger boost from going fully vegan, based on this study at least. But for women, and maybe overall longevity in some studies, pescatarian diets seem to show clearer, more consistent benefits.
That's a reasonable interpretation of these specific findings, yeah. And it lines up with other research, too. Studies from the UK, Australia, they've also reported that vegetarians weren't necessarily living longer than comparable non-vegetarians. So it really reinforces that there's, no definitive universal link saying strict veganism always equals a longer lifespan for everyone. It's just not that simple.
Okay, so if a well-planned plant-based diet can offer benefits, even if it's not universally the best for longevity, what's actually happening in the body? What are the mechanisms?
Right. So when these diets are done well, focusing on whole foods, they're naturally rich in fruits, veggies, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds. And these foods are just loaded with fiber, plant protein, and crucially, antioxidants. These components work together to help protect against things like obesity, type 2 diabetes, certain cancers, and heart disease.
Got it. So these are the things doing the heavy lifting. Let's talk about those anti-aging mechanisms. Oxidative stress and inflammation, how do plants help there?
Okay, so oxidative stress is like, think of it as an imbalance. Too many damaging molecules called free radicals, not enough antioxidants to neutralize them. It causes cellular damage, kind of like rust. Plant foods are packed with antioxidants, like over 60 times the amount in animal foods on average. So they directly fight that damage, slow down aging processes, even help protect your skin.
Okay, neutralizing the bad guys. And inflammation.
Right. Chronic inflammation is another big driver of aging. It constantly damages cells. Vegans who eat lots of fruits and vegetables generally show lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood. That's a huge benefit for long-term health, reducing that constant wear and tear.
Makes sense. And Dr. Furman had some points about protein specifically, didn't he? Something about animal versus plant protein?
He did. His perspective is that higher intake of animal protein can potentially shorten lifespan, partly by activating growth pathways like IGF-1 more strongly, which is good for growth, obviously, but maybe not always great long-term if it's overactivated. Plant protein, on the other hand, helps us maintain things like brain function, immune strength, muscle, bone, all crucial as we age, but generally without pushing protein intake too high or overactivating those pathways.
So it's not just any plant foods, but focusing on those higher protein ones like beans, lentils, seeds, even broccoli, that contributes more to the longevity picture than, say, just eating fruit.
Exactly. It's about getting adequate, but not excessive, protein from plant sources. And one more mechanism worth mentioning is the gut microbiome.
Ah, yes, the gut bacteria.
Yeah. Studies suggest vegans tend to have a more diverse gut microbiome, which is increasingly seen as really important for overall health, digestion, immunity, maybe even mood and aging.
Okay, so lots of potential ways a good plant-based diet can help, but This brings us back to a crucial point you made earlier. The quality is everything, right?
Right.
Just being vegan isn't enough.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Cannot stress this enough. Not all vegans live longer precisely because not all vegan diets are healthy. You can be vegan and live on, sugary drinks, processed snacks, white bread, vegan junk food. That's obviously not going to promote health or longevity.
Well, fries are vegan, but
Exactly. So it's only those robust, well-planned, whole food, plant-based diets that are linked to the longer lifespan and lower disease risk we've been talking about. There's actually data showing this stark difference. A nutritious plant-based diet lowered heart disease risk by 25%. An unhealthy one, still technically plant-based, increased the risk by 32%.
wow, that really drives the point home. So just ditching meat isn't the answer. What are the common pitfalls then? What nutrients do people on vegan diets, especially poorly planned ones, need to watch out for?
Yeah, there are definitely key nutrients that are less abundant in plant foods or harder to absorb. So planning is essential, we're talking about. Protein needs conscious effort to get enough varied sources for muscle repair. Vitamin B12, this is a big one. It's almost exclusively in animal products. Essential for nerves, blood cells. Deficiency is serious. Supplementation is usually necessary.
B12, got it. What else?
Vitamin D, many people are low anyway, but it's harder to get from vegan food sources. Important for bones, immunity. Calcium goes with that for bone health. Iron, plant iron isn't absorbed as easily as iron from meat. And zinc, important for immunity, healing. So not monitoring these things can lead to problems like anemia, nerve issues, bone problems, fatigue. It requires attention.
And what about older people thinking about going vegan? Any special considerations?
It can definitely be safe and healthy for seniors, but again, planning is key. Protein needs might even increase slightly with age to prevent muscle loss, so that needs focus. And B12 absorption often decreases as we get older anyway, making supplementation even more critical. Plus, protecting against osteoporosis means being really diligent about calcium and vitamin D.
Okay, this raises another important question. How much of the benefit we sometimes do see in vegan populations is purely the diet versus other healthy habits they might have?
That's a classic challenge in this research. Confounding factors. Vegans as a group tend to have healthier lifestyles overall. They often smoke less, drink less alcohol, are more likely to maintain a healthy weight, exercise more regularly, maybe avoid processed junk foods more often.
Right, so they're doing a lot of things right, not just the diet.
Exactly, and all those things, exercise, not smoking, healthy weight, are huge contributors to longevity on their own. It makes it really hard to isolate just the effect of not eating animal products.
Which is a good reminder for everyone listening. Longevity isn't just about finding the single perfect diet, is it? There are other major pieces to the puzzle.
Oh, absolutely. Diet is vital, a cornerstone for sure, but it's only one part of the whole picture.
What are some of those other pillars we should keep in mind?
Well, the obvious ones like, avoiding harmful stuff, tobacco, excessive alcohol, getting enough regular physical activity is not negotiable. Good sleep, hygiene, quality rest is incredibly restorative. Managing stress levels is huge too. Chronic stress takes a massive toll.
Yeah, definitely feel that one.
And then there's maintaining healthy social connections, really important for well-being and lifespan. Taking a proactive approach to health, regular checkups, screenings, and of course, prioritizing mental health. It's all interconnected. You can't really optimize one without considering the others.
So wrapping this up, we've really dug into this question of vegan diets and living longer. And it seems clear that well-planned, whole food, plant-based diets definitely linked to a lot of health benefits. They can contribute to longevity, especially compared to, say, a standard unhealthy Western diet.
Absolutely. But as we've seen, the picture is definitely complex. The evidence doesn't really support the idea that strict veganism is universally the best path to a longer life compared to other healthy patterns, like pescatarian diets, for instance. The quality of any diet, making sure you get the nutrients you need, maybe supplementing wisely, especially B12 if you are vegan, and embracing all those other healthy lifestyle factors. Those seem just as, if not more, critical than the dietary label itself.
Yeah, that feels like the core message. So the takeaway for you listening seems pretty clear. Focus on those nutrient-dense, whole plant foods, pack your plate with them. Be aware of potential nutrient gaps, whatever your diet, but especially if you're cutting out whole food groups. And embrace that holistic, healthy lifestyle. That's probably your best bet for a longer, healthier life, whatever you call your diet.
Exactly. And maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. If many of the biggest longevity benefits seem to come from reducing animal products and significantly increasing the quality and quantity of plant foods, does achieving those benefits necessarily require that absolute strict exclusion? Or could a more flexible, plant-forward approach give you most of the gains, perhaps without some of the specific nutritional hurdles of going 100% vegan?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep nourishing that curiosity.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode of Good Vegan Meal. If you loved what you heard and you're hungry for more, head over to our link tree at linktr.ee/goodveganmeal. There you can grab our free PDF 30 high-protein vegan 5-minute meals packed with quick recipes and full nutritional stats for every meal. Perfect for busy days and plant-powered gains. And if you're ready to take your vegan cooking game to the next level, check out our cookbook's 125-minute vegan meals for kids' lunches, a school lunchbox lifesaver, 185-minute vegan meals, and 7 weeks of high-protein meals with meal planning made simple with grocery lists for each week. Grab your goodies at linktr.ee/goodveganmeal, and we'll see you in the next episode.